Did you know there's a correlation between overseas manufacturing, sex addictions, and men who are not healthy in their masculinity? Well, I was shocked too. Like when I started diving into that, I was like, what is this? I mean, I started learning that the EU has lost 50% of its GDP in the past 25 years. And they send their manufacturing, their farming overseas, tax up the wazoo. So I am Kerry Blaser, reincarnation of Mary Magdalene, the divine feminine. And today we're going to start with Victor Hansen, who is an amazing man, and he's going to help us understand what's going on in the EU and how that's happening in America and other places too, and how it's hurting us. And then we're going to do a deep dive into what it means to outsource masculinity, what it means to disembody masculinity, and how it negatively impacts people, societies, and culture. And then we're going to get into all the healthy ways that men can dive into their healthy masculinity and all the trade jobs and how much they make, and Mike Rowe and all the grants that he's giving out. And I'll have all those links below. So let's start with a look at what it means to have this correlation between overseas manufacturing, sex addictions, and unhealthy masculinity. So let me pull up that. I did, me and ChatGPT had a talk. So let me pull that up and then we'll dive into it. Okay. So there is evidence of correlation at the level of structure and psychology, but not as simple as a one-to-one causal claim. Okay. So it's in the arena, but I'm not saying this creates that, but it's in the same arena. What happens when men be like, oh, well, you can take care of that part of my masculinity, and you can take care of that part of my masculinity. And, another group in here are players, because I used to attract players into my life. And so I was like, they outsource their masculinity by leading women to their demise with tons of casual sex. Casual sex destroys women. And indirectly, over the long run, it also destroys men because women are the emotional center. So when there's no emotional center, no healthy emotional center where mental health is created and sustained, then we get what's happening today in 2026 with population collapse, divorce rate at 50% or above, MGTOW, more than 50% of men just don't even date anymore, and men are becoming super conservative where women are holding on to the left, the last ditch effort, but I know they're going to let go. So the relationship is indirect, systemic, and mediated by power, disembodiment, and access. So let's look at what this actually means. So what actually changed with overseas manufacturing? From the 70s and to the 90s onward, globalization produced a specific shift among wealthy men at the top of systems. Globalization means, well, where's the nation state boundary? That's masculinity. Okay, how is dad or the business owner going to go make sure everything's working properly? It's in a different country. Now I got to rely on all kinds of other people. He's not doing it himself. See, so power became abstract. Finance, logistics, contracts. A lot of BDSM contracts have been popular since the 90s. Okay, there was even the whole movie about that. Labor became distant, other countries, other bodies, not direct supervision. Somewhere else, someone else do it. I'm at home collecting the paycheck. Men are healthy when they have healthy work. Risk was externalized. Physical danger, injury, pollution all happen in a whole other country. Oh, we're just keeping our people safe. But what about all those jobs that the young men did? I've learned that men reduce their cortisol the most by chopping wood. So how is sitting a man in a cubicle helping him have healthy levels of testosterone? I'll argue it's not, and it's on purpose. This is the same pattern we've been calling disembodied masculinity, where the person isn't embodying their masculinity, they're giving it away and sitting on the couch and, counting their money. Then they got a lot of time for multiple women, addictions, all kind of gambling, all kinds of other stuff, right? all kind of time. So this is what happens when we put money and convenience before health and well-being. Because health and well-being for a man is manufacturing's here. I go down and make sure it's going well. I'm there all the time. I have work every day. My dad, he retired at 60, but he couldn't stop working because he's a man. Men need healthy work. They just do. So, I mean, women, if a woman wants to reduce her cortisol and have healthy feminine hormones, she walks and does gentle yoga. She doesn't chop wood, okay? Men and women are different, right? But this all came about in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when there was like the social constructionist movement where, men and women aren't different. I just have an innie and a womb and he just has an outie and testicles. We're not different. He can just, lift a lot more weight than I can. He can withstand 25% more heat than I can. But, we're not different. Like his bone structures are far more, are far stronger than mine. His muscles are stronger than mine. His hips are closer together than mine. So he can carry weight vertically. Women aren't designed to carry weight because that's why we have wide hips. That's why in the military, women get hurt more. So disembodiment and power increases addictive risk. Not grounded in work, lots of free time, lots of money, convenience. From psychology and addiction science, risk factors for compulsive sexual behavior include high stress, low emotional intimacy. Well, I would say having my manufacturing in a different country like China, when it's a communist country and there could be problems, could be high stress. And you say low intimacy it's very far away. That's not an intimate. It's a very distant locale for my business. Power without accountability. It's hard to have accountability when part of your business is in a communist country and you don't have full control over it. How can you be fully accountable to your business when you don't have full control because it's a communist country? I don't know. Okay? Novel seeking, poor nervous system regulation, lack of embodied meaning. These are structural features of elite globalized power, not personal moral failures. This is what happens when we globalize. And this is what we're saying, poor nervous system regulation. That's when people are constantly talking about their fear, guilt, and shame because their nervous system is calibrated for fear, guilt, and shame. And a lot of Europeans, like I brought up the EU, and they lost half of their GDP. A lot of fear, guilt, and shame over colonialism. America too. A lot of fear, guilt, and shame over colonialism. I would say that's another driver for overseas manufacturing. Oh, well, we took all their money we got to help them out. So we did it out of shame and not out of health and well-being. Okay, so the correlation is contextual, not moral. Why sex specifically becomes a common outlet? Well, men's nervous systems are far more fragile than women's nervous systems. That's just how we're designed. So a man super stressed out in a foreign country, much easier for him to, get a girl for the night in the red light district than it is for a woman. Sex activates dopamine, adrenaline, oxytocin. In disembodied power structures, work is abstract and symbolic. Okay, abstract, they're not manufacturing here. Feedback is numerical. It's financial. Meaning is thin. The body is underused, and that's the problem with men. Men need to use their bodies. They are physiologically designed to be physical, okay? So in my book, My Inner Heroine, the fifth hero is a 6'7", retired fire captain 2 who oversees the wildland cadet program. He told me he needs to be outside like 13 hours a day or he just can't take it. And I believe the man. I believe him. And I love to be inside as a woman. Love to be inside because I'm a woman. Sex becomes one of the few remaining direct, embodied, intense experiences available on demand. Okay. Globalization increases opportunity structures, right? Global travel, disposable income, access to sex industries, legal and moral distance from harm, normalization of exploitation elsewhere. I'll just do my work over there. Yeah, I gotta visit the company. I gotta go. I gotta go to Thailand. Yeah, we got manufacturing in Thailand, right? Right. So while this whole helping people, we were addressing our own fear, guilt, and shame with more fear, guilt, and shame. And we're all aware now in 2026 in China how that worked out, moving all manufacturing to China like that. Oh, give it all to China. Didn't work out that great. Frictionless access. Okay. Why this pattern appears more among wealthy men. Not because of male nature, but because they uniquely combine power, money, privacy, legal insulation, cultural entitlement, stress without community regulation. Addiction is about regulation, it's about regulating your nervous system. Okay, so let's get over to Victor Hansen and his video about EU. And yes, there's a lot of women in EU, but I have another argument there too, that all the taxing, all the climate restrictions, all the controlling, let's help everyone else. Of course, there's a lot of fear, guilt, and shame there as well, but that's a woman in her masculinity being unhealthy. So let's look into what they have to say. And I think that the forced taxes, the forced climate work, the forced globalization, that's like forced philanthropy. Because women are biologically concerned about relationships and men are biologically concerned about things. So when you put women in charge of things, they care about the relationships. When you put men in charge of relationships, they care about things in general. Okay, let's dive into Victor Hansen because he does a great job here.
If we got together all of the quote unquote smart people and we put them all in this beautiful idyllic place, they can think up utopian dreams, but then can be from the that can be from the top down implemented by hoi polloi, the many. If you don't
yeah, let's talk a little about this utopian dream. So
in some ways, I mean,
people,
it's not
what I've
doing
noticed
good for the rest of us.
is that when people dream of utopia, it's because they don't have utopia inside of themselves. Their nervous system is calibrated for fear, guilt, and shame, which a lot of EU people are, which is why they have no boundaries, uncontrolled migration, a lot of shame around colonialism in Europe. So, okay, it's our fault, let them in, right? So when we're making decisions based on fear, guilt, and shame, we lack boundaries. When we lack boundaries, then we don't notice that the GDP, went down by half, that maybe we're overtaxing, that maybe, it's that the relationship with the globalism is less important than making sure our farmers in our home countries have work, which we've seen. There have been like mass protests in France, I think in England as well in the past like couple months. And this is January of 2026. So when we kind of deny ourselves and we're punishing ourselves through fear, guilt, and shame over our past events, then we overgive. Then we overgive, there's no boundaries. So, while yes, we're talking about outsourcing masculinity, there's also outsourcing of femininity too. And we could talk about that in another video, but let's get back to Victor.
It is important because it has aspirations that are quite dangerous. Hello, I'm Victor Davis Hansen for the Daily Signal. This is the week of the inauguration of Donald Trump, but it also coincides not just with Martin Luther King's birthday on the same day as the inauguration, but also the meeting of the world's elite at Davos, Switzerland, lorded over by 86-year-old Klaus Schwab, who created this organization. If you don't know what Davos is, don't worry about it. It's not that important. in some ways. I mean, it's not doing a lot of good for the rest of us, but it is important because it has aspirations that are quite dangerous. Basically, its premise is that if we got together all of the quote unquote smart people, those are people who have letters after their name, or they live in the right zip codes, or they're wealthy, or they're professors, or they're key government officials, and we put them all in this beautiful, idyllic place, they can think up utopian dreams that then can be from the top down implemented
Right.
by hoi
They're
polloi,
just
the
superior
many.
to the
And
electorate.
they have actual
Sound like,
disgust for
I
elected
mean,
governments,
communists
because you
might
see,
call that the
elected governments make mistakes
bourgeoisie,
in their
like,
view.
you know, like the ruling elite, like the kings and queens who just are just above government because they just know and they just come from the right place. You know, so replace genes with PhD. But where'd you get your PhD? Is it left leaning or is it right leaning? I mean, that acts as if there's no political sway in an education system, which we know today there really is, because 60% of the people that go there are women, and institutions are 98% left leaning. So this is not just, you know, just because you're educated doesn't equate with being unbiased, which is what they're saying.
They elect people, and then they do the wrong thing. They have these 19th century
Oh,
borders.
they're not.
They believe in legal
They're
only
communists.
immigration. They don't believe in
They're
redistribution
communists.
of money.
And
They
communism is an
believe in
external
free market
solution to an internal
capitalism.
problem. It's like cancel culture. And I can bring up my Andrew Huberman video in a second, but he goes into detail about why changing things outside of you doesn't change things inside of you. And when our nervous systems are calibrated for fear, guilt, and shame, hence all the shameful things happening in Europe, our problems aren't going to get solved. We're just going to live in our problems. We're going to live in our fear, guilt, and shame. Where we spend our time is what we manifest. You know, EU is supposed to be capitalist, but you know, they went for, what is it called? Stakeholder capitalism. Like, we're responsible for everybody. That's relationships. That's like female capitalism. That's like philanthropy capitalism. That just doesn't work. You know, but that's communism. So let's keep going. But this is a source of a huge problem.
They are opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they don't want to put mandates on corporations, ESG, about the environment and social questions and governance questions. They let the market adjudicate, which you can't do. Now, the reason that they're really angry this week is Donald Trump was elected in the United States, and he is a Jacksonian populist nationalist who believes that the U.S. Constitution and the creation of this last great hope for Earth is unique and singular. And he trusts it and its constitution more than he does these Davos international organizations, who, remember, are not elected by anybody. They're appointed. So Donald Trump immediately got out of the International Criminal Court. This was an international body that, if implemented in
That's
the
what
case
I
of the
talk about
United States
international
fully,
law.
it would say that
But
a
there isn't any
major or colonel
international
in the
law. I
United
mean,
States
after World War
could be
II, yes, there were
prosecuted if
trials,
he
but
issued
America
an
was
order that they
engaged in it.
felt
So
was
why would America
inhumane.
outsource our legal code to people who aren't, I mean, they're not elected in America? We should outsource our government sovereignty to the EU? I mean, that's the definition of controlling. That's the definition of we're above you and we're the king and queen on the, you know, on our thrones. Like, what? I don't think so.
He got out of the World Health Organization. That was pretty much a Chinese-dominated world organization that functioned during the COVID crisis largely with the help of Anthony Fauci and Peter Daszak, to suppress the truth that that virus was created in the Wuhan lab. May or may not have been a biological weapon, may or may not have escaped naturally by mistake. But in any case, Donald Trump poses a threat to the Davos crowd. And more importantly, his threat is amplified because it works. People who have followed the model of Milton Friedman and free market economics in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in Argentina, and the United States are doing very well. When the EU was created, its GDP was almost 25 years ago the same as the United States. And then it started to implement these Davos-like issues and laws and policy, and now it has almost a little more than
what they call stakeholder capitalism, which is really communism,
GDP
socialism.
of the United States,
it's really philanthropic capitalism. It's women, when women run the show and they don't understand that they're not men and they really care about relationships and feelings. This is what happens. So, I'm arguing for letting men be men and women be women, and then, things will get better, but, that's just me.
Only about 60% of the per capita income. So the people at Davos know that their socialist, globalist model doesn't work. And they know that people don't want to listen to them anymore, because when people adopt these views, their economy slows, they get poor, their borders are overrun, illegal immigrants come and cannot be assimilated or integrated, and the people feel they have less security, prosperity, and freedom.
People have a problem admitting fault.
Rather than addressing those
and what does that
concerns,
mean? Well, Christian nations locate their source. It's an external locus of power in God. When we have in our subconscious and our belief system an external locus of power, then we're not responsible. Then we're just, us. We're just better than. We're just, we're in the right group. If I'm in the right group, right? Like if I'm progressive, I'm good. I'm good because I'm progressive. It's circular reasoning. It's the ego. It's not healthy linear logic. It's hard to watch.
Or having at Davos, why is Donald Trump being elected? Why was Milley? Maybe we can learn from these people because they represent elections and freedom. No, it's Donald Trump. How dare you say this? Milley is wrong. And so they too, as I've said in an earlier broadcast, they have forgotten nothing and learned nothing. And each year Davos becomes more and more irrelevant. And the people who oppose them and put their trust in the people in the U.S. Constitution and freedom and individual liberty do
to have disembodied masculinity. We're going to look into players. We're going to get into Carl Jung. Gotta love me some Carl Jung, and understand it more before we do a deep dive in the top paying jobs for non-college educated men. And Mike Rowe, who has a great program for grants to learn about all these. There's six-figure jobs, electricians, plumbers, we need those jobs, need those jobs. So let's pull up more on the chat GBT first. Okay, so what outsourcing masculinity means. It means embodied masculinity is when a man has his own masculinity, physical presence, protection, responsibility, boundary keeping, stewardship, bearing consequences in one's own body, not outsourcing it to somebody else. Okay. Outsource masculinity. What does it look like? Authority without presence. Overseas manufacturing. Power without risk. Same thing. Control without accountability. Rules without relationship. Decisions without bodily cost. In other words, sovereignty moved from the person into a system. External source of power sets up a codependent relationship. driving addictions. We all know the word codependent now. We know that's another word for mentally ill. And that word codependent, we have addictions like I had a shopping addiction, an eating addiction. We can have a sex addiction, a gambling addiction, all kinds of addictions. So how does Christianity outsource masculinity? What is outsource? The moral authority goes to God. Everything goes to God. Judgment, protection, punishment, sovereignty, all God and church hierarchy. I mean, Christianity teaches the cross is the only ladder to heaven. Well, I didn't go to the church to experience enlightenment all the time, but we'll get to that in a minute, okay? Resulting masculine psychology, obedience replaces agency. Well, were they obedient when they killed 3 to 6 million heretics because they didn't believe that the cross is the only ladder to heaven? Were they obedient? Submission replaces responsibility. I mean, let's look at Manifest Destiny when men were asked to kill Native American women and children. How do you think that impacted their mental health? But definitely submission replaces responsibility. If you want to see a great movie on that, Legends of the Fall. Sexualized weakness. External father figure, God. Fear-based morality. Men no longer say, I protect, I decide, I bear the cost. They are trained to say, God commands, the church decides. Disembodied masculinity. Masculinity becomes deferred upward, right? Communism, outsourcing masculinity to the party and history. I have a master's degree in East Asian religious studies. I speak Chinese. I was in China in 92, 93, and 95, and I haven't been back. Okay, so let's look at it. What is outsourced? Moral authority. Moral authority goes to ideology, right? Justice is the historical process. Violence is, necessity. I was in Tibet, and a lot of their monasteries were just destroyed. China too. Judgment goes to the party. Responsibility to the collective, right? So communism outsources our responsibility to an external power. So we have no internal authority. When a person has no internal authority, they're easily controlled. But early Christianity, like Jesus and Mary Magdalene were teaching, is inner authority. That I don't need the cross to access heaven. I'm the only person that has sovereignty over my soul. When I learn how to turn my wounds into wisdom, then I will naturally expand my emotional range, become more emotionally mature, be less easy to control, and, expand my emotional range to include enlightenment. But that wasn't the goal. And we can get into Christianity in a second because their goal is humility, not enlightenment. Humility on high, but humility is a surrender emotion, not a climbing emotion. So it's inverted wisdom. Oh, what's inverted wisdom? A wound in the subconscious, a lie in the subconscious. Okay? So resulting masculine psychology, obedience to doctrine, identity replaces conscience, violence without personal guilt, like Manifest Destiny, go kill 60 million buffalo and kill, 80 to 90% of Native Americans. Kill the beavers too. Kill all the keystone species and destroy our ecology in America because God gave us dominion over animals. I had someone this week in my chat tell me that wolves kill for fun because, he didn't do the research that I had done. And God gave us dominion over the animals. Oh, so when we're over the animals, then we just kill them all and destroy our ecology. So making flooding, drought, and wildfires really prevalent, spending billions of dollars. God gives us dominion over animals and we're so responsible with it. And we don't act like just little children running around with guns and axes. This is what happens when we put money and convenience over health and well-being. We didn't listen to the Native Americans. Native Americans were telling us we need to be in relationship with the animals, and now we know that through bringing back the keystone species. The man no longer says, I choose this. He says, history required it. Oh yeah, history required Manifest Destiny. Required the Crusades, required burning women at the stake. History required a lot of shit. Agency equals the system, right? Overseas manufacturing. What is outsource? Building in other countries. Physical risk, other people, not us. Like I'm not taking my own risk. I'm too special to take my own risk, right? Labor, invisible workers that you'll never meet. Environmental damage, China doesn't care, just wants to make money, distant lands. Accountability to algorithms and corporations, finance sheets. Resulting masculine psychology, control without proximity. How can you really be in control of something if you're not there with it? Profit without stewardship, power without protection, because our when manufacturing in a different country, the protection comes from the other country. Dominance without embodiment. Factories, risk, danger, and dirt are displaced. Decision makers remain clean, distant, and abstract. Masculinity becomes virtualized. Okay, let's talk about the players because they're all over my book. And in my book, I put that it's been my experience that men with a deep maternal wound abdicate their leadership responsibilities inside of a relationship. And what does that mean? They don't know how to lead a conversation. They don't know how to lead in self-control. They lead women to their demise with casual sex. Casual sex destroys women's ability to pair bond as wives and mothers. We know this now. Okay? And I'm talking about Fire Academy instructors. There were 2 of them in my book. So players, is the institutional elites. These are all the top tier men who get whatever women they want. And when men have a lot of sex, they run out of testosterone. No self-control. Right? So let's go down and here, the system. Christianity, masculinity is relocated to God and church. Communism is relocated to party and history, but history and Christianity too. And global capitalism, corporations, markets, algorithms. Okay? The psychological cost. When masculinity is outsourced, men experience loss of purpose, anxiety, identity collapse, rage without direction, attraction to extremes, lots of women, addiction to stimulation, easy women, nihilism or authoritarianism. Societies experience fragile families. Oh, divorce rates astronomical. Weak boundaries. Oh, no one, everybody come in the borders. Abstract violence. Moral confusion, scapegoating. Okay? Let's see the 1-sentence answer. Christianity, communism, and modern global capitalism each outsource masculinity by transferring agency, protection, and moral authority from embodied individuals into abstract systems, God, ideology, or markets, creating power without presence and control without responsibility. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining beings of light, like the utopia that Victor talked about, or Jesus is going to save us all, but by making their darkness conscious. Each and every soul has to learn how to turn their wound into wisdom and recalibrate their nervous system to resonate with love, compassion, and enlightenment instead of fear, guilt, and shame. That's the reparenting process. Einstein said the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. The field meaning the energy field. The particle meaning the body. The field of epigenetics, epi meaning before, genetics, has proven that less than 1% of our diseases come from DNA. So it comes from the field. It comes from what we believe and our fears, our emotions, our energy bodies. Our physicists have proven that we all have energy bodies, and our souls or energy bodies communicate through emotions. So if we spend most of our time in our lower vibrating emotions, there's the addiction and there's the external authority source, because we haven't figured out our own internal authority source to process our wounds and turn them into wisdom or knowledge. We just, haven't gotten there yet. So let me bring up these 2 great websites, one where it shows the top jobs, and then we'll share a micro because it's so great. Okay, here we go.
Now, these guys, they do make the most money. To be honest, I've talked to some of their people in their union. I think they may have some of the best benefits you get in it.
Let me try. Oh, I thought they had it here. Sorry, here. Okay, so the elevator, escalator installers and repairers, the median pay in 2023 was $102,000. I think that looked pretty good to me. Let me see if I can find it more. Okay, here's another one. Boilermakers, $71,000. And I'll link it below. But
Construction and building inspectors are normally, here's what I like about this. Construction.
so, I mean, you're talking, and then they haven't even gotten to electricians and everything that makes so much money. I'll put this below so you can find it, but let me bring up Mike Rowe's website real quick so you can see it, and then it'll also be linked below because I know that he has grants and he's working overtime because he knows that that so many young men want to oh wow. Yes, he's the grant 16 million in work ethic scholarship grants. Okay. So he does all of these scholarships for the trades. And so you can, if you're interested in the trades, you can find it down there. You can reach out to him for support. But I'll continue doing my videos. I'll do one on disembodied femininity and see where that takes me. But I hope this was helpful for you. And please check out my free ebook below. It will help you learn to self-reflect, help you learn how to turn your darkness make your darkness conscious, like Carl Jung said. And you'll be in a second, will be my meditation and shamanic drumming video. You can listen to that, help you open your heart, learn to listen to yourself so you can establish your own inner authority. And you can take accountability for your challenges and upgrade your life. All right, take care. Bye.